The summer heat clung to my skin like shame as I stood in my father's barn, watching him shake hands with the devil himself. 19 years old, and I'd just been sold for a horse. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Tears poured down my face. Hot, humiliating tears that dripped onto my cheap Sunday dress. I tried to wipe them away, but they kept coming, kept falling, like my body knew something my mind couldn't accept yet. This was really happening. The man in the black suit counted cash with hands that didn't tremble. Not like my father's, not like mine. His eyes were darker than anything I'd ever seen, and when they landed on me, I felt my knees buckle. "She's untouched," my father said, voice breaking on every syllable. Just like we agreed. Untouched. Like I was meat at a market. Like I was something to be inspected and approved. The man, I didn't even know his name yet, tilted his head, studying me. His gaze traveled from my worn boots to my tear-stained face, and I felt naked, exposed, like he could see every secret I'd ever kept. "Please." The word ripped out of me before I could stop it. "Please, Daddy, don't do this. I'll get a job. I'll work. I'll do anything. Aria, baby, I'm so sorry." My father's face crumpled, but he didn't move, didn't stop counting the money in his hands. The stranger spoke for the first time. His voice was like smoke and whiskey, dark, smooth, dangerous. "How much do I owe for the entertainment?" I didn't understand. Entertainment? "She's just scared," my father said quickly. Too quickly. "She'll calm down. She's a good girl, smart, top of her class." I asked how much extra for the crying. Those dark eyes never left me. "I don't like damaged goods." The words hit me like a slap. Damaged goods. I was damaged before he even touched me. Fresh tears spilled over, and I hated myself for them. Hated that I couldn't stop, couldn't be brave, couldn't be anything but this pathetic, sobbing mess. "She's not damaged," my father said desperately. "She's perfect, exactly what you wanted. She just needs time to—" "Time." The stranger smiled, and it didn't reach his eyes. "That's the one thing I have plenty of." He looked at me, really looked. "What's your name, Piccola?" I couldn't answer. My throat had closed up completely. "Her name's Aria," my father said. "I wasn't asking you." His voice went cold, dangerous. "I was asking her, so I'll ask again." He took a step toward me. "What is your name?" Aria." It came out broken, barely audible. "Aria Moretti." "Beautiful name." Another step closer. "Do you know who I am, Aria?" I shook my head, pressing back against Stella's stall. The horse shifted behind me, sensing my panic. "My name is Alessio Marchesi, and as of 3 minutes ago, you belong to me." Belong. Like the horse, like property, like something he could own. "No." I shook my head harder. "No, I can't. I won't. You can't make me—" He moved so fast I didn't see it. Coming. One moment he was across the barn, the next his hand was wrapped around my upper arm. Not painful, but inescapable, like iron wrapped in silk. "Listen very carefully," he said, his mouth close to my ear. "Your father made a deal, signed papers, took my money. That makes you mine now. You can come quietly, or you can fight and scream and make this worse for everyone. But either way—" His breath was warm against my skin. "You're getting in that car." A sob broke from my chest, ugly and raw and terrified. "That's what I thought." He gentled his grip slightly. "Come. It's time to go." "Wait!" I twisted to look at my father one last time. "Daddy, please. Please don't let him take me." But my father just stood there, holding his blood money, tears running down his face. "I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry. But it's for Marco. They were going to hurt Marco. So you hurt me instead?" The words came out like acid. "You sold me? Your own daughter?" "I had no choice." "You always have a choice!" I was screaming now, past fear, past shame. You chose gambling over Mom's medical bills. You chose drinking over keeping the farm. You chose a horse over your daughter. You always choose wrong. Alessio pulled me toward the door. I fought him, not because I thought I could win, but because I couldn't just go quietly. Couldn't just accept this. Let me go! Let me go! He lifted me off my feet, carrying me like I weighed nothing. I kicked and screamed and clawed, but it was like fighting stone. He didn't even flinch. At the car, a sleek black Mercedes that probably cost more than our farm, he finally set me down. But he didn't let go. His hands gripped my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. Are you finished? I spat in his face. The world went very still, very quiet. I'd just spat in the face of a man who owned me, a man my father was clearly terrified of, a man who could do anything he wanted to me, and no one would stop him. What had I done? Alessio reached up slowly and wiped his face with a handkerchief. His expression didn't change, didn't show anger or rage or anything. That was somehow worse than if he'd hit me. Get in the car. Or what? I was crying again, but my voice was steady. What are you going to do? Beat me? Kill me? Do it. I don't care anymore. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or respect. I couldn't tell. I'm not going to beat you, Aria. Or kill you. But if you don't get in that car in the next 10 seconds, I'm going back to your father. And I'm going to ask him where your little brother goes to school. The blood drained from my face. You wouldn't. Try me. I got in the car. The leather seats were cool against my bare legs. I'd tracked hay and dirt into his pristine Mercedes, and I didn't care. Couldn't care. All I could do was press myself against the door as far from him as possible and try to remember how to breathe. Alessio slid into the driver's seat, started the engine. Classical music filled the space, some Italian opera, a woman's voice soaring through tragedy. It felt appropriate. We pulled away from the barn, and I watched everything I'd ever known disappear in the rearview mirror. My home, my father, my life. Gone. All of it. Gone for a horse with a bad knee. I hate you, I whispered. I know. I'll never forgive you for this. I'm not asking you to. He didn't look at me, just drove. But you will survive it, and eventually, you'll understand. Understand what? That I'm property now? That my father sold me like livestock? That sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is the thing that saves your life. He glanced at me then. Your father didn't just owe me money, Piccola. He owed it to some very bad people. People who would have taken more than just you. They would have taken your brother, your father, burned that farm to the ground with all of you inside. I stared at him, trying to process his words through my terror. I gave him a way out, Alessio continued, a way to clear his debt and keep his sons safe. He chose to take it, whether that makes me your savior or your captor. He shrugged. I suppose that depends on how you choose to see it. You're a monster. Yes. No hesitation, no denial. But I'm your monster now. And monsters, Piccola, are very good at keeping their treasures safe. I didn't know how to respond to that. Didn't know if I should be terrified or something else. Something I couldn't name. We drove in silence for another 10 minutes. The countryside blurred past, fields giving way to suburbs, suburbs to estates hidden behind stone walls. I'd never been this far from home. Never been anywhere, really. And now I'd never go back. Fresh tears spilled over, and I turned toward the window so he wouldn't see. But my shoulders shook with silent sobs, and I knew he knew anyway. Are you always this emotional? He asked, not unkindly. Are you always this cruel? Yes. Simple, honest, terrifying. But only to people who deserve it. And you, Aria? You don't deserve cruelty. You deserve truth. So here it is. He turned down a long driveway lined with ancient trees. In about 2 minutes, we're going to arrive at my home. You're going to meet my housekeeper, a woman named Rosa. She's going to take you to your room, help you get settled. You're going to shower, change into clean clothes, and at 8 o'clock, you're going to join me for dinner. And if I don't? Then you'll go to bed hungry. Your choice. He pulled up to a massive villa, white stone, terracotta roof, gardens that looked like something from a magazine. But I'd suggest you eat. You're going to need your strength for tomorrow. Why? What's tomorrow? He smiled. Actually smiled. And it was the most terrifying thing I'd seen all day. Tomorrow, you meet my family. And trust me, Piccola, you think I'm scary? Wait until you meet my sister-in-law Valentina. The car stopped. A woman appeared at the entrance, older, severe-looking, dressed all in black. Her hair was steel gray, pulled back in a tight bun, but her eyes were kind, almost sympathetic. This was it, the moment where my old life officially ended, and whatever fresh hell this was began. Alessio came around to open my door. Out. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Aria. Out. Now. What happens if I refuse? If I just stay in this car forever? He leaned down, his face level with mine. Then I carry you out. And you really don't want me to do that in front of Rosa. She already thinks I'm a barbarian. Let's not prove her right. I climbed out on shaking legs. My knees almost buckled, but I grabbed the car door to steady myself. The woman, Rosa, hurried over, concern written all over her face. Signore, she said carefully, her eyes on me. Is everything? Everything's fine, Rosa. This is Aria. She's had a difficult day. Take her to the East Wing. Make sure she has everything she needs. Rosa studied me like I was a wounded animal. Then she looked at Alessio, and something passed between them. Some silent communication I didn't understand. Of course, she said softly. To me, she said, Come, Cara. Let's get you inside. I followed her because what else could I do? Through halls that echoed with my footsteps, past rooms bigger than my entire house, up a sweeping staircase that belonged in a palace. Everything was marble and gold and crystal, and I felt like I was walking through a museum or a tomb. This wasn't a home. It was a prison disguised as paradise. Rosa opened a door to a bedroom that took my breath away. Massive four-poster bed draped in white silk, furniture that looked antique and expensive, French doors opening to a balcony with a view of gardens that seemed to go on forever. Bathroom through there, Rosa said gently. I'll bring up clothes. You look like a size 4? I couldn't speak, just nodded. Shoes? 7, I whispered. She moved to leave, then paused at the door. I know you're frightened, Cara. I know this all seems impossible, but I need you to understand something. She turned back to face me. Signore Marchesi is many things. Dangerous, yes. Ruthless, absolutely. But he is not cruel. Not to those under his protection. And you, whether you know it yet or not, are under his protection now. He bought me, like furniture. He made a business arrangement with your father. That's different. Is it? I felt tears threatening again. Because it doesn't feel different. It feels like I'm a thing now. Property. Something he owns. Rosa's expression softened. Then prove him wrong. Show him you're more than that. Show yourself you're more than that. She gestured to the bathroom. For now, shower. Wash away the day. Dinner is at 8. Don't be late. The door clicked shut behind her, and I was alone. I made it 3 steps before my legs gave out completely. I sank to the floor, pressed my back against that enormous bed, and let myself completely fall apart. I cried for my mother, dead 3 years from cancer we couldn't afford to treat properly. I cried for Marco, 12 years old and stuck with our worthless father. I cried for myself, for the life I'd never have, for the future stolen from me. I cried until there was nothing left, until I was empty and hollow and numb. Then I dragged myself to the bathroom. The shower was all marble and gold, with more knobs than I knew what to do with. I turned them randomly until hot water poured down, so hot it turned my skin pink. So hot it hurt. Good. I wanted it to hurt. Wanted to feel something other than this crushing terror in my chest. I scrubbed myself raw with soap that smelled like lavender and honey. Washed my hair with shampoo that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe at home. Tried to wash away the memory of my father's face, of Alessio's cold eyes, of the horse I'd been traded for. But some stains don't wash off. Some stains go bone deep. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a robe that felt like wearing a cloud, I found clothes laid out on the bed. A simple white sundress that looked expensive despite its simplicity, delicate sandals with small heels, undergarments so pretty and delicate they made me want to cry again. They'd known my size, planned this, been waiting for me. How long had my father been planning to sell me? My hands shook as I dressed. The clothes fit perfectly, which somehow made it worse. This wasn't some random transaction. This was premeditated, arranged. My father and Alessio had sat down together and negotiated my price like I was cattle. $63,218. That's what I was worth. Less than the cost of a decent car. At 7:45, Rosa knocked. "It's almost time, Kara. Are you ready?" No, I would never be ready. But I opened the door anyway. Rosa's eyes swept over me, and she nodded approval. "Beautiful. Come. I'll take you to the dining room." My legs didn't want to work, didn't want to carry me toward whatever came next, but I forced them to move, one step at a time, through the maze of hallways. We passed a room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and I paused. A library. An actual library, right here in this house. "That's Signore Marchesi's library," Rosa said, noticing my interest. "He spends hours in there, reading, mostly, sometimes working." A man who bought people also read books. The contradiction made my head spin. The dining room could have seated 20 people easily. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings that probably cost more than my father's farm. A table so polished I could see my reflection in it. But there was only one person there. Alessio stood at the head of the table, and when I entered, he turned. He'd changed out of the black suit into something more casual, dark slacks, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. I could see tattoos on his forearms now. Dark, ink that looked like words in a language I didn't know. His eyes swept over me, and something I couldn't name flickered in their depths. "You clean up well," he said simply. It wasn't a compliment, just an observation, like commenting on the weather. "Sit." He gestured to the chair at his right hand, not the far end of the table, right next to him. I sat, keeping my eyes down, my hands folded in my lap like I was at church. If I made myself small enough, invisible enough, maybe he'd forget I was here. A glass appeared in front of me, red wine in crystal that caught the light from the chandelier. "I don't drink," I said quietly. "Why not?" "My father." I swallowed hard. "He drinks, all the time. I don't want to be like him." Alessio studied me for a long moment. Then he snapped his fingers, and the wine disappeared. Water and crystal replaced it. "Fair enough." Dinner arrived. Pasta that smelled incredible. Chicken that looked perfect. Vegetables I didn't recognize. My stomach growled despite everything. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and that had been just toast and coffee. But when I picked up my fork, my hands shook so badly I couldn't get the food to my mouth. Pasta fell back onto my plate. Sauce splattered the white tablecloth. I was making a mess, embarrassing myself, proving I didn't belong here. "Stop!" I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Alessio set down his own fork. "Put it down." I did, my hand shaking so badly the fork clattered against the plate. "Look at me." I forced my eyes up. His expression was unreadable. Not angry, not disappointed, just watching. You're terrified. I understand that. But you need to eat. So here's what's going to happen. He pushed his chair back slightly, turning to face me more fully. I'm going to ask you questions. Simple questions. You're going to answer them. While we talk, you're going to eat. Slowly. No pressure. Just conversation and food. Can you do that? I nodded. Words, Aria. I need to hear your voice. Yes, I whispered. I can try. Good. He picked up his wineglass. How old are you? 19. I'll be 20 in December. I managed a bite of pasta. It was incredible, rich and creamy with flavors I'd never tasted before. But it might as well have been cardboard. Everything tasted like ash in my mouth. Education? High school. I graduated top of my class. A tiny spark of pride, quickly extinguished. What did grades matter now? Another bite. Easier this time. What did you want to be? Before all this? The question surprised me. No one had ever asked me that before. Not really. I don't know. I never really thought about it. We couldn't afford college, so it seemed pointless to dream. But if you could have anything, any future, what would it be? Why was he asking me this? What game was he playing? I liked books, I said slowly, taking another bite without thinking about it. I spent a lot of time at the library. Mrs. Chen, the librarian, she'd let me stay past closing sometimes. I thought maybe I could work there someday. Be a librarian or something. Somewhere quiet where I could read and help other people find stories that would take them away from their lives. Something shifted in his expression. Softened almost. You'll have access to my library. Third door on the left, main floor. Thousands of books. First editions, rare manuscripts, collections that took me years to build. All yours whenever you want them. I stared at him. Why would you? Because what's mine is yours now, including my books. He took a sip of wine. Tell me about your brother. Marco, yes? The mention of Marco made my throat tight. He's 12, smart. Smarter than me, probably. He loves math and science. Builds things out of scraps he finds. Little machines, contraptions. He wants to be an engineer someday. Build bridges. He will. What? Build bridges. He will. Alessio set down his glass. I'll make sure of it. I'll pay for his education. All of it. Middle school, high school, university, graduate school, whatever he needs. I couldn't breathe. Why? Because he's your brother. Because he's innocent in all this. Because… Alessio paused, and for the first time, I saw something almost human in his eyes. Because I take care of what's mine. And you're mine now, which means your family is under my protection. Even your worthless father. I don't understand you. The words burst out before I could stop them. You buy me like property but offer to pay for my brother's education? You terrify me but make sure I have water instead of wine? You own me but give me access to your library? What are you? Complicated. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Just like you're going to discover you're more complicated than you think. I'd somehow eaten half my plate without realizing it. Better, Alessio said, noticing. Much better. You see? Not so hard when you stop thinking about it. Is that what I'm supposed to do? Stop thinking? No. I need you to think. To be smart. To survive. He leaned back in his chair. Which brings me to the hard part. My stomach dropped. What hard part? Tomorrow night, there's a dinner. My family, 3 brothers, their wives, some close associates. They're going to meet you, judge you, try to figure out what you are to me and whether you're a threat. Panic flooded through me, cold and overwhelming. No, I can't. Please, I can't face strangers, I can't. You can. You will. His voice was firm but not harsh. Because they need to see you, need to know you're real, and you need to start learning how this world works. What world? What are you talking about? He leaned forward, elbows on the table, and looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. You don't know who I am. Not really. Your father didn't tell you, did he? He said you were a businessman, that he owed you money. I am a businessman. I own restaurants, real estate, import companies, legitimate enterprises. He paused. But I'm other things too. Things your father was too much of a coward to tell you. My hands started shaking again. What things? My family, the Marchesis. We're what you might call traditional Italian businessmen. We have our hands in many enterprises. Some legal, some. He swirled his wine. Less so. Understanding dawned slowly, like ice spreading through my veins. You're mafia. Such an ugly word. We prefer family business. He smiled without humor. But yes, essentially, I'm the underboss of the Marchesi organization. My oldest brother Dante is the boss. We control territory from here to Boston. We handle problems. We make deals. We protect our interests. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. You're a criminal. A gangster. I'm a man who does what's necessary to protect his family and maintain his power. Sometimes that involves violence. Sometimes money. Sometimes both. He looked at me, his gaze steady and unflinching. And sometimes it involves accepting a frightened girl as payment for a debt because her father was desperate and I was curious. Curious about what? About you. His eyes held mine. Your father talked about you. For months, every time I went to collect, he'd mention his brilliant daughter. How you were too good for that farm, too smart for that life. How you deserved better than what he could give you. I thought he was just a desperate man making excuses, but then I met you and what? And I saw he was right. You are too good for that life. Too smart. Too. He trailed off, looking almost frustrated. You were wasted there, dying slowly in that barn with a drunk for a father and no future. At least here, you have a chance. A chance at what? Being owned by a criminal? A chance at a life. At education, opportunity, safety. At being more than just another casualty of your father's mistakes. He stood, and I flinched instinctively. He noticed, and something like pain crossed his face. I'm not going to hurt you, Aria, but you need to understand what you are now. You're under my protection. That means you're safe from everyone, including me. But it also means you have responsibilities. Tomorrow, you meet my family, and you're going to hold your head up and prove you belong here. I don't belong here. I don't belong anywhere. Then make yourself belong. He moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. The east wing, where your room is yours. I won't enter without permission. You're safe there. But the rest of the house? You're free to explore. Library, gardens, anywhere you want. This is your home now. Act like it. He left, and I was alone again with half a plate of food and a head spinning with impossible truths. Mafia. I'd been sold to the mafia. And tomorrow, I'd have to face his whole family and pretend I wasn't falling apart inside. I made it back to my room, somehow. Rosa had turned down the bed, left a glass of water on the nightstand. Like this was a hotel, like I was a guest instead of property. I changed into the silk nightgown someone had left folded on the bed, someone had thought of everything, and climbed between sheets that probably cost more than my entire bedroom at home. But I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face, heard Alessio's voice. You belong to me now. What did that mean? What would he want from me? And why had he looked almost sad when I'd flinched away from him? Around midnight, I gave up on sleep. I wrapped myself in the robe and stepped out onto the balcony. The night air was cool, fragrant with jasmine and roses. Below, the garden stretched into darkness, lit by scattered lanterns that looked like fallen stars. It was beautiful, all of it. The estate, the gardens, even my prison of a room. But beauty didn't make it freedom. Can't sleep? I spun around, heart pounding. Alessio stood in the doorway to my room. How had he gotten in? He'd said he wouldn't enter without permission. I knocked, he said, reading my face. You didn't answer. I got worried. He was worried about me. The man who owned me was worried. I couldn't sleep, I said, pulling the robe tighter. I keep thinking about tomorrow, about your family, about— My voice broke. About everything. He moved onto the balcony, but kept his distance, leaned against the railing a few feet away. He'd changed too, loose pants, a t-shirt. He looked almost normal, almost human. They're going to try to break you, he said quietly. Especially Valentina, Dante's wife. She's territorial, protective of the family. She'll see you as an outsider, a threat, maybe even a whore who seduced me for money. I flinched at the word. I'm not saying that's what you are, Alessio continued. I'm telling you what she'll think, what she'll say maybe, and you need to be ready for it. How am I supposed to be ready for that? I can barely hold myself together now. You fake it. You pretend you're stronger than you are until the pretending becomes real. He looked at me. You did it tonight at dinner. You were terrified, but you answered my questions. You ate. You survived. That was just dinner. This is your whole family. People who kill for a living. We don't kill for a living, he corrected. We kill when necessary. There's a difference. Is there? He smiled grimly. You'll learn. But Aria? He turned to face me fully. I meant what I said. You're under my protection. That means if anyone, and I mean anyone, including Valentina, crosses a line, hurts you, makes you feel unsafe, you tell me. Immediately. Why do you care? The question hung in the air between us. Because you're mine, he said finally. And I protect what's mine, even from my own family. But I'm not really yours. Not like a person. I'm just— You're a person who's under my protection and living in my house. That makes you mine. And before you argue, he held up a hand. I know how it sounds. I know what I am. But in my world, that word, mine, it means something. It means I feed you, shelter you, keep you safe. It means I don't let anyone hurt you. It means you matter. Even though you bought me. Especially because I bought you. You think I'd spend $63,000 on something I planned to break? I didn't have an answer for that. We stood in silence for a moment, the night air cool around us, the scent of jasmine almost overwhelming. Get some sleep, Alessio said finally. Tomorrow's going to be hard. You'll need your strength. He moved toward the door, and before I could think about it, I spoke. Alessio? He turned. Why a horse? Why did you agree to take me for a horse and money? You could have just taken the money, or taken everything. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, the horse was your father's idea. He said she was valuable, worth 30,000 easy, but he was still short, so he offered you as supplemental collateral. His jaw tightened. I could have said no, could have taken his farm, his equipment, left him with nothing. But then I met you, and I thought— He stopped. Thought what? That maybe you deserved a better life than dying slowly in that barn. That maybe I could give you that. He looked at me with something almost like vulnerability. I'm not a good man, Aria. I've done terrible things. I'll do more terrible things. But I can give you safety, opportunity, a future. That has to count for something. He left before I could respond, and I stood there on the balcony, trying to understand this impossible, contradictory man who'd bought me and was now offering me the world. Sleep came eventually, fitful and full of dreams I couldn't remember. The next day, Rosa woke me early. Up, Cara. We have much to do before tonight. Woman arrived at 10. Gianna, tiny and severe, with a critical eye that missed nothing. She brought racks of clothes, boxes of shoes, cases of jewelry. Signore Marchesi wants you perfect for tonight, she announced, circling me like a predator. We have work to do. She dressed me in outfit after outfit, critiquing each one. Too casual, too formal, wrong color, right cut, but wrong fabric. I felt like a doll being played with, and I hated every second. But I also couldn't deny that when she finally settled on a deep burgundy dress, elegant, sophisticated, showing just enough skin to be interesting but not inappropriate, I looked like someone who belonged in Alessio's world. I looked like someone who wasn't a scared farm girl. Better, Gianna declared. Much better. Now hair and makeup. The transformation took hours. By the time she was done, I barely recognized myself. My hair was styled in soft waves that made me look older. My makeup was subtle but effective, highlighting my eyes, making my skin glow. I looked beautiful, and I hated it. Because none of this was me. It was all costume, all pretend. Remember, Gianna said as she packed up her things, confidence is everything. Even if you're terrified inside, never let them see it. Head up, shoulders back, eyes forward. You belong there because Signore Marchesi says you do. That's all that matters. She left, and I was alone with my reflection and my racing heart. At 7, Rosa came to collect me. You look beautiful, Cara. Absolutely beautiful. I look like a fraud. You look like a woman who belongs at Alessio Marchesi's table, which, as of yesterday, is exactly what you are. She squeezed my hand. You'll do fine. Just remember, they're testing you. Don't give them anything to use against you. The restaurant was in the city, exclusive and elegant, with a private room in the back. My heels clicked on marble floors as Rosa led me toward certain doom. At the door, I paused. I can't do this. You can. You must. Rosa pushed open the door. The room was full of people, beautiful people, dangerous people, all of them turning to look at me as I entered. Alessio stood immediately. He'd been sitting at the head of a long table, and when he saw me, something flashed in his eyes. Appreciation, maybe. Or pride. Everyone, he said, his voice cutting through the conversations. This is Aria. 3 men who looked like variations of Alessio, dark hair, dark eyes, that same aura of controlled violence. These were his brothers, I realized. The family. And their wives. A blonde dripping in diamonds who looked at me like I was dirt. A quieter brunette who watched with interest. A redhead who seemed bored by the whole thing. Aria, Alessio said, gesturing to the men. My brothers, Dante, the eldest, Cristiano, and Luca, the youngest. Dante nodded, his expression unreadable. He was older, maybe 40, with silver threading his dark hair. He looked like he could kill you and not lose a second of sleep. Welcome, he said, and his voice was surprisingly warm. Any friend of Alessio's is family. She's not a friend, the blonde said sharply, the one dripping in diamonds. She's… what, exactly? You haven't explained, Alessio. Who is this girl? Alessio's expression went cold. She's mine, Valentina. That's all the explanation you need. Yours. Valentina's smile was sharp as a knife. How quaint. And what does that mean exactly? Is she your girlfriend? Your mistress? Your… Valentina. Dante's voice was soft. Dangerous. That's enough. I'm just trying to understand who we're welcoming into the family, Valentina said, but she stopped talking. Alessio pulled out the chair next to him. Sit, Aria. I sat, my hands shaking in my lap where no one could see them. The burgundy dress suddenly felt too tight, too revealing, too everything. Wine appeared. I didn't touch it. Water instead, and I was grateful for something to hold on to. So, Aria, Valentina said, leaning forward with false sweetness, tell us about yourself. Where are you from? Connecticut, I said quietly. A small town. You wouldn't know it. And your family? What do they do? Trap. This was a trap. She wanted me to admit I was nobody, nothing, worth less than the wine in her glass. My father owns a farm, I said carefully. Had a farm. He sold it recently. A farm. Valentina's smile widened. How rustic. And your mother? Dead. 3 years ago. That got a reaction. Even Valentina looked momentarily uncomfortable. I'm sorry, the brunette said softly. Bianca, I'd learn later. Cristiano's wife. That must have been difficult. It was. I took a sip of water, trying to steady myself. But we managed. And education? Valentina again, relentless. Where did you go to school? Local high school. I graduated top of my class. But no college? We couldn't afford it. I see. Valentina sat back, triumph in her eyes. She'd confirmed what she suspected. I was poor, uneducated, beneath them. Aria reads, Alessio said suddenly. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. Extensively. She's probably read more literature than anyone at this table. And she's smart. Smart enough to hold her own in any conversation in this room. Education and intelligence aren't the same thing, Valentina. You of all people should know that. The insult was subtle but clear. Valentina's face flushed. I wasn't insulting her. Yes, you were. You've been insulting her since she walked in. Alessio's hand found my knee under the table, warm, steadying. She's under my protection. That means she's under the family's protection, which means you treat her with respect. Understood? The table went silent. Even Dante looked surprised. Understood, Valentina finally said, but her eyes promised retribution later. Dinner was served, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. Business, mostly, territories and deals and things I didn't understand. I ate quietly, trying to be invisible. But Bianca, sitting across from me, kept catching my eye, smiling, trying to be kind. Don't let Valentina get to you, she whispered, when the men were deep in conversation. She does this to everyone, tests them, tries to find weaknesses. She found plenty, I whispered back. No, you held your own. Trust me, I've seen people crumble under less. Bianca took a sip of wine. And Alessio defending you like that? That's unusual. He doesn't usually. She stopped. Just, you must be special. I'm not special. I'm just, if you weren't special, you wouldn't be here. She smiled. Give it time. You'll figure this world out. Would I? Or would it eat me alive first? After dinner, we moved to a lounge area. Leather chairs, expensive liquor, cigar smoke. The men clustered together, talking business. The women gathered separately. So, Valentina said, once we were alone, her voice had lost its false sweetness. Now it was just sharp. Let's be honest. What are you really? Because Alessio doesn't do girlfriends. He doesn't do relationships. So what are you? I looked at her, this beautiful, cruel woman who wanted to destroy me, and something inside me shifted, hardened. I'm exactly what he said I am. His. What that means is between him and me. Did he buy you? Is that it? Are you some kind of… Valentina. Bianca's voice was sharp. Stop. I'm just trying to protect the family. We don't know anything about her. She could be anyone, working for anyone. She's a 19-year-old girl from Connecticut, Bianca said. What threat could she possibly pose? The quiet ones are always the most dangerous. The redhead, Luca's date, laughed. Oh, please, look at her. She's terrified. Probably never been to a place like this before. She's no threat. They were talking about me like I wasn't there. Like I was furniture, property, just like my father had. Just like Alessio had, in that barn. And something in me snapped. You're right, I said quietly. All three women turned to look at me. I've never been to a place like this. I grew up poor. My mother died because we couldn't afford proper treatment. My father's a drunk who gambled away everything we had. I'm nobody from nowhere, and I don't belong here. Valentina smiled, smelling blood in the water. But, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart, Alessio chose me. For whatever reason, he looked at me and decided I was worth bringing into his world. So maybe I'm not a threat to you. Or maybe I'm exactly the kind of threat you should worry about. The kind you don't see coming because you're too busy looking down on her. The silence was deafening. Then Bianca started laughing. Oh, I like you. I really like you. Valentina looked like she'd been slapped. How dare you? I dare because I have nothing left to lose, I said. You can't take anything. From me. I've already lost everything. So go ahead. Test me. Insult me. Try to break me. See where it gets you. I stood, my legs shaking but holding. Excuse me. I need some air. I walked out before any of them could respond, found a balcony, stepped into the night air, and let myself shake apart in private. What had I done? I'd just challenged Valentina, the wife of the boss, in front of everyone. Alessio was going to kill me, or send me back to my father, or… That was either the bravest or the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I spun. Alessio stood in the doorway, and I couldn't read his expression. I'm sorry, I said quickly. I didn't mean to. She was just… I couldn't… Stop. He moved closer. I'm not angry. You're not? Valentina needed to be put in her place. You did it better than I could have. Something that might have been a smile crossed his face. You surprised me tonight, Piccola. I thought you'd crumble. Instead, you fought back. I was terrified the whole time. I know. I could see your hands shaking, but you didn't show it. You held your ground. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. You did well. Very well. The praise made me want to cry. When was the last time someone had been proud of me? Valentina's going to hate me forever now. She hated you the moment you walked in. At least now she respects you too. That's more valuable. He leaned against the railing beside me. You asked me last night why I cared, why I bought you. My heart stopped. Yes. You want the truth? Please. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, when your father first offered you as payment, I laughed, turned him down, told him to find another way. But he kept talking about you, kept saying you were special, brilliant, wasted on that farm. And I got curious. So the next time I went to collect, I asked to meet you. You met me before? I don't remember. You were at the library, reading. Your father pointed. You out through the window. Alessio smiled at the memory. You were so focused on your book you didn't notice us, didn't notice anything, and I thought, she's beautiful. But that wasn't what caught me. What did? The way you looked at that book, like it was everything, like it was saving your life. He turned to look at me. I grew up in this world. I never had a choice about what I'd become. But you had dreams, hopes, a future you wanted even if you couldn't have it. And I thought, what would happen if I gave you that chance? What would you become? I couldn't breathe. So you bought me as an experiment? I bought you because your father owed me money, and I'm not a good man. But I kept you because I wanted to see who you'd become when you weren't trapped anymore. I'm still trapped. I'm just in a prettier cage. Are you? He gestured to the city spreading out below us, lights glittering like stars. You have access to my library, money for anything you need, safety, security, opportunity. The only thing you don't have is the ability to leave. But ask yourself, where would you go? Back to your father? To what future? He was right, and I hated it. Hated that this prison was better than my freedom had been. I want to make a deal with you, Alessio said. What kind of deal? You stay. You learn this world. You let me teach you how to survive in it. And in return, I give you everything you need to build whatever future you want. Want to go to college? I'll pay for it. Want to start a business? I'll fund it. Want to just read books for the rest of your life? The library's yours. He paused. All I ask is that you stay here, under my protection, and that you're mine in public. My companion. My what? Whatever we decide you are, we'll figure it out as we go. And if I say no, then tomorrow I'll give you money, enough to start over, and a car, and you can go wherever you want. I won't stop you. My heart pounded. You'd really let me leave? I'd really let you leave. I'm not your father, Aria. I don't chain people who don't want to be here. His eyes held mine. But I think you're smarter than that. I think you know that out there, you're just another poor girl with no prospects. Here, you're under the protection of one of the most powerful families in the Northeast. Here, you have value. Because you say I do. Because I say you do. And in this world, that's all that matters. I looked out at the city, at all those lights, all those lives, all those people with futures and dreams and choices. And I thought about the library at home, about Mrs. Chen letting me stay late, letting me escape into worlds bigger than mine, about Marco, who needed someone to pay for his education, about my mother, who died wanting more for me than what she'd had. If I stay, I said slowly, I want something else. Name it. My brother, Marco. I want him out of that house, away from our father. I want him somewhere safe where he can go to school and not worry about, my voice broke, about being collateral for our father's next bad decision. Alessio didn't hesitate. Done. I'll have him placed in a boarding school, the best one I can find. Full scholarship, all expenses paid. Your father won't even know where he is. And if my father comes looking for me, tries to, your father won't bother you again. I'll make sure of it. The certainty in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, it made me feel safe. Then I'll stay, I said. For now, until I figure out what I want. That's all I ask. He offered his hand. Partners? I looked at his hand, large, scarred, capable of terrible violence, and thought about everything it represented, everything I was agreeing to. Then I took it. Partners. His fingers closed around mine, warm and firm, and I felt something shift between us. Some invisible line crossed. We should go back inside, he said, before they think I'm ravishing you on the balcony. Would you? Ravish me, I mean. The question surprised us both. I hadn't meant to ask it. Alessio's expression went very still. Do you want me to? I don't know. I'm trying to understand what this is, what we are. Right now, we're two people trying to figure out how to coexist. Later? He smiled, and it was almost gentle. We'll see. But Aria, when I take you to bed, and I will, eventually, if you let me, it won't be ravishing. It'll be because you ask me to, because you want it as much as I do. Heat flooded through me, unexpected and confusing. And if I never ask? Then we'll be the most chaste couple in Mafia history. He released my hand. Come, let's survive the rest of this dinner, and tomorrow we'll figure out the next step. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Valentina avoided me. Bianca sought me out, asked for my number, promised to take me shopping. The men talked business and ignored the women. And Alessio stayed close, his presence a constant reminder that I was protected, safe, his, whatever that meant. On the drive home, I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind all night. Your grandmother's sapphires, the ones you mentioned last night, can I see them? He glanced at me. Why? You said they were her favorite. I want to understand who she was, who you are. He was quiet for a moment. Then, she was from Sicily, came here with nothing but pride and jewelry, built a life for herself through sheer force of will. She was remarkable, terrifying, the strongest person I ever knew. She sounds amazing. She would have liked you. She respected fighters, people who didn't quit even when they should. I'm not a fighter. You challenged Valentina tonight. You negotiated with me. You're still standing after everything that's happened. He pulled into the estate grounds. You're more of a fighter than you know. At my door, he paused. Tomorrow, a tutor will come. If you want to prepare for college applications, you'll need to refresh some subjects, unless you've changed your mind. About college? About staying. I looked at this impossible man who'd bought me and was now offering me the world. No, I haven't changed my mind. Good. He turned to leave, then stopped. Aria, what you did tonight, standing up to Valentina, that took courage. Don't lose that. This world will try to make you small. Don't let it. He left me with those words ringing in my ears. That night, I didn't cry myself to sleep. Instead, I lay awake thinking about futures and choices, and the strange, terrifying man who'd somehow become my protector. And for the first time since my father sold me, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. The weeks that followed developed a rhythm. Mornings, I woke to Rosa bringing coffee and breakfast. Then hours with the tutor, a patient woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who helped me prepare for college entrance exams. She never asked why a 19-year-old was just now thinking about college, never made me feel stupid for not knowing things. Afternoons belonged to the library. Alessio had been right. It was incredible. First editions of classics, rare manuscripts, books in languages I didn't know but wanted to learn. Sometimes Alessio joined me there. We'd read in companionable silence, him with his business documents, me with whatever novel I'd chosen. It was peaceful, normal, almost. Evenings were dinner together. We'd talk about what I'd learned that day, about books we'd both read, about nothing and everything. He never touched me beyond the occasional hand on my back as we walked, never pushed for more than I was ready to give. It should have been perfect, a fairy tale almost, but fairy tales don't exist in the Mafia. I learned that the hard way. It started with small things, a car following us when we went into the city, strange men watching the estate, Alessio's increasing tension, the way his jaw would tighten when his phone rang. "What's wrong?" I asked one night at dinner, 3 weeks after my arrival. "Nothing you need to worry about." "I'm not a child, Alessio. I can see something's happening." He set down his fork. "There's another family, the Salvatores. They're making moves on our territory, testing boundaries. It's standard, happens every few years. Someone gets ambitious, makes a play, gets shut down. Shut down how? However necessary." His eyes were hard. "This is my world, Aria. This is what I do. Kill people. Protect my family. Sometimes that requires violence." I should have been horrified, should have run screaming. But I'd been living in his house for 3 weeks now. I'd seen the legitimate businesses, the charity work, the way he treated his employees with respect. The violence was just one piece of a complicated whole. "Will you be safe?" I asked quietly. Something softened in his expression. "Yes, I know what I'm doing. Promise me, Aria. Promise me you'll be careful, that you'll come home." The words surprised me. When had this place become home? When had I started caring whether he came back? He reached across the table, took my hand. "I promise." But promises, I'd learn, were fragile things in this world. 2 days later, it happened. I was in the library, reading, when I heard shouting. Then gunshots, sharp cracks that made my blood run cold. Rosa burst through the door. "The panic room, now!" "What's happening?" "Now!" She pulled me through hidden doors, downstairs I didn't know existed, into a reinforced room that looked like something from a spy movie. "Stay here," Rosa commanded. "Don't come out for anyone but Alessio. Understand?" The door sealed shut, and I was alone in silence. I waited. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours. Then my phone, the one Alessio had given me my second day here, rang. Are you safe? His voice was tight, controlled fury barely leashed. Yes, I'm in the panic room. What happened? The Salvatores sent a team. Tried to get to you. Thought they could use you as leverage against me. My blood ran cold. Are they dead? All of them. But Aria, listen to me. This changes things. You're not safe here anymore. Not until I end this. End it how? However I have to. His voice was ice. I'm sending Rosa to get you. Pack a bag. You're going somewhere safe until this is over. No. Silence. Then. What did you say? I said no. You promised me safety. Promised me a future. I'm not running every time someone threatens you. If this is my life now, then I face it here. Aria, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're going to war, and I'm going to be here when you get back, because that's what partners do. More silence. Then quietly, you're going to get yourself killed. Then you better make sure you win. He laughed, a short, sharp sound. You're insane. I'm yours, remember? You're crazy as rubbing off. Stay in the panic room until I come for you. And Aria? Yes? Don't ever scare me like that again. He hung up, and I sat in the silence, heart pounding, realizing I'd just done something incredibly stupid or incredibly brave. Maybe both. Alessio came for me an hour later, covered in blood that I prayed wasn't his. He pulled me from the panic room and held me like I was the only thing keeping him tethered to humanity. You should have left, he said against my hair. You should have run when you had the chance. Where would I run to? This is my home now. He pulled back to look at me. You mean that? I mean it. For better or worse, I'm in this. I'm in this with you. Something shifted in his eyes. Something that looked almost like love. Then he kissed me. Not the gentle, tentative kiss I might have expected, but hunger and desperation and relief all rolled into one, like I was air and he'd been drowning. I kissed him back. Because, somewhere in the last 3 weeks, somewhere between the library and the dinners and the quiet moments, I'd stopped being just his property. I'd become his, and he'd become mine. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This is going to get worse before it gets better, he warned. The Salvatores won't stop, not until one of us is gone. Then make them gone. He smiled, sharp and dangerous and beautiful. I knew I liked you for a reason. The war that followed was brutal and efficient. I didn't see most of it. Alessio kept me sheltered, protected, safe behind the estate walls. But I heard things, saw things, watched him come home with wounds he tried to hide, and I learned to patch him up, learned the locations of safe houses, learned the names of allies and enemies, learned how to hold a gun, just in case. I was becoming someone new, someone harder, someone who could survive in this world. 3 weeks into the war, Alessio came home with a bullet wound in his shoulder. It's nothing, he said, trying to wave me off. Sit down, I commanded. Now. He sat. I cleaned the wound with shaking hands, trying not to cry at the sight of his blood. This is insane. This whole world is insane. People are dying over territory and pride and you, he said quietly. The Salvatores want you. They think taking you will break me. Will it? He caught my hand, stilling it. Yes, it would. The admission hung between us. I love you, I whispered. The words surprised me, but they were true. Somewhere between fear and safety, between captivity and freedom, I'd fallen in love with this impossible, dangerous man. I know, he said. I've loved you since the library. Since I saw you lost in that book, dreaming of bigger worlds. I just didn't know how to tell you. So you bought me instead. So I saved you. There's a difference. Maybe there was. Maybe there wasn't. But it didn't matter anymore. End this, I said. End this war. Come home to me safe. I will. He kissed me, gentle this time. I promise. And for the first time, I believed him. The war ended 3 days later. Not because one side won decisively, but because Alessio did something unexpected. He called a sit-down, not to negotiate peace, to deliver an ultimatum. I never learned the details. But the next morning, news reported that Antonio Salvatore, head of the family, had died of a sudden heart attack. The doctors confirmed it. Natural causes. We both knew better. With the Salvatores broken and leaderless, their territory was absorbed. The war was over. We'd survived. That night, Alessio came to my room for the first time since that first day. But not to demand, to ask. I want you, he said simply. But only if you want this too. I looked at this man who'd bought me and freed me, who'd protected me and challenged me, who'd become my home in ways I never expected. Yes, I said. I want this. I want you. What happened next was everything I'd feared, and nothing like it. There was gentleness mixed with hunger, patience mixed with need. He took his time, teaching me pleasure I'd never known, showing me that intimacy could be beautiful instead of terrifying. And when he finally moved inside me, when I gasped at the intrusion and the strange, overwhelming fullness, he kissed away my tears and whispered promises in Italian that I was starting to understand. Ti amo, sei mia, mia regina. I love you. You're mine, my queen. Afterward, as we lay tangled in sheets that smelled like us, he traced patterns on my bare skin. What happens now? I asked. Now? We build a life. You go to college if you still want to. I step back from the business, let my brothers handle more. We figure out how to be normal while living in this crazy world. Normal? I laughed. We're never going to be normal. No, but we can be happy. That's better. He was right. The months that followed were a blur of applications and acceptances and new beginnings. Columbia accepted me for the spring semester. Alessio framed the letter like I'd won an Olympic medal. Marco was safely ensconced in a prestigious boarding school in Vermont, finally away from our father. He called every week, excited about his classes, his friends, his future. He knew something had changed for our family. He didn't know what. And that was fine. I didn't talk to my father. Alessio made sure he was taken care of, money enough to survive but not enough to gamble away, a small apartment in a different city, a job at one of Alessio's warehouses. But we didn't speak. Maybe we never would. Some wounds cut too deep for forgiveness. 6 months after my arrival, Alessio proposed properly. Not with ultimatums or deals, but with a ring and a question and hope in his eyes. We married in the spring, a small ceremony in the estate gardens. Stella watched from her paddock, content in her retirement, surrounded by the foals she'd produced. She'd become the foundation of a small breeding program, her bloodline proving more valuable than my father had ever dreamed. Just like me. I started Columbia that fall, 19 turning 20, older than most of my classmates, with life experience they couldn't imagine. I told people I was married to a businessman, let them assume what they wanted, and focused on building my future. I discovered I was brilliant at business strategy, at reading people, at finding opportunities others missed. My professors loved me. My classmates didn't know what to make of me. I didn't care. I was building something for myself. By my second year, I'd started consulting on the side, helping small businesses navigate growth, connecting them with funding, solving problems. It started small, but word spread, and soon I had clients willing to pay serious money for my insights. Alessio encouraged it, helped me set up an LLC, introduced me to contacts, celebrated every victory like it was his own. "You're going to be more successful than me," he said one night, reviewing my quarterly earnings with pride. That was always the plan, wasn't it? You said you wanted to see what I'd become. I did. And this? He gestured to my business plan, my client list, my future spreading out before me. This is better than anything I imagined. But success came with a price. The higher I climbed, the more visible I became. The more people noticed the young woman married to Alessio Marchesi, building an empire of her own. And not everyone liked it. The attempt on my life came on a cold February evening, 18 months after my arrival. I was leaving my office late. Stupid, I knew better, but I'd been distracted by a difficult negotiation. The car pulled up beside me. 3 men. Professional. But my security was better. The team Alessio had insisted I take everywhere intercepted them. Shots fired. Chaos. And then silence. I stood behind a car, shaking, while my head of security confirmed the shooters were down. "You're safe, Mrs. Marchesi," he said. "But we need to move. Now." Alessio arrived at the safe house within minutes, his face white, his hands shaking as he checked me for injuries. "I'm fine," I kept saying. "I'm fine. They didn't touch me." "They almost did. They almost—" He couldn't finish, just held me like I might disappear. "Who were they?" I asked when he finally calmed enough to speak. "Competitors. People who think eliminating you will solve their problems with your business." His jaw clenched. "I'll handle it." "No." I pulled back to look at him. "I'll handle it. Aria, this is my world now, my business, my enemies. Let me deal with it my way." "Your way?" "The legal way. I'm going to destroy them financially, professionally, publicly, make them an example that every other firm in New York will remember." He studied me, this girl he'd bought who'd become a queen, and smiled. "Do it." I did. Within 3 months, the rival firm was bankrupt. Within 6 months, they'd dissolved completely. I'd won using nothing but my intelligence and my resources. And Alessio looked at me with such pride, such respect, that I felt 10 feet tall. "You're magnificent," he said. "Absolutely magnificent." I learned from the best. Years passed. We built and grew, had 2 daughters who would never doubt their worth. I graduated Columbia with honors, built Moretti Consulting into a powerhouse, became someone who mattered in my own right. Alessio stepped back from the family business gradually, focusing on legitimate enterprises. We weren't clean. You never get completely clean in that world. But we were cleaner. Better. Stella lived to 27, dying peacefully in her sleep surrounded by her legacy. We buried her in the meadow behind the estate, and I cried more than I'd cried in years. She'd been the price of my freedom, and somehow, she'd given me more than she'd cost. My father died when I was 28. Marco called to tell me, asked if I wanted to come to the funeral. "No," I said, "but thank you for calling." He asked about you, at the end, wanted to know if you were happy. What did you tell him? The truth, that you're more successful and powerful and respected than he ever was, that you won. The daughter he sold became more than he ever imagined. On our 10th anniversary, Alessio took me back to the barn where it all started. The property had been sold and resold. The barn was a ruin now, falling down, reclaimed by nature. "Do you remember?" he asked, holding my hand. "Every second." "If you could go back, knowing everything, would you do it again?" I thought about that question, about fear and pain and uncertainty, about strength found and love gained and the person I'd become. Yes. Not because I wanted to be sold, not because I'm grateful for trauma, but because every choice, every challenge led me here, led me to you, led me to myself, and I wouldn't trade who I am for anything. He kissed me in the ruins of our beginning, and it felt like closing a chapter. We left that place and never went back. The past was behind us. Because sometimes the prince is a monster, and the girl saves herself, and they save each other, and none of it looks like stories, but all of it is real and messy and beautiful. I was 19 when my father sold me to a mafia boss for a horse with a bad knee. I'm 35 now, a businesswoman, a mother, a wife, a queen in my own right. And if you asked me what I'm worth, I couldn't put a number on it. Because I'm worth exactly what I say I am, what I know I am, what I've proven myself to be. They say my father sold me for a horse, that I was traded like livestock, worth less than an animal with a bad knee. But here's what they don't understand. You can't sell what was never yours to begin with. I belonged to myself then, just as I belong to myself now. The difference is, now I know it. Alessio didn't buy me. He saw me. And in seeing me, he gave me the greatest gift. Not his love, though I have that too, but the mirror that showed me my own worth. I was never the girl who was sold for a horse. I was always the queen waiting to claim her throne. It just took a ruthless mafia boss to show me where I'd been sitting all along.